Waialua kai leo nui. Pa. O Waialua kai leo nui. Ualono ka uka oli hue. Hue mai kanani o ka pailoa. Ua paina maleini ne ia ʻāina. E hea kuana no e komo me ke aloha la. Mai kuli galeo, he ono ke gaie.
E ho mai
Ai ke mai luna mai e.
Aloha, mai kākou. Before I start, in the back of me is Kupopolo Heiau at Waialua in the moku of Waialua, or the district of Waialua on the mokupuni of Oahu. And this is the kai that we will be talking about, is in Kai Leo Nui.
All right, so just wanted to acknowledge that this is where our field school started back in 2013 as archaeology field school here at Kapailoa. ʻāina that Kamehameha Schools is now the steward of. A wahi kūpuna ancestral place that is makai or seaward of the heiau of Kupopolo. Kupopolo heiau being a very important wahi kūpuna and wahi kapu sacred place associated with the ali'i and kahuna of Oahu Island. There's a longer mo'olelo, but this was where we got our field school started, and the very beginning was to connect not only students with the ʻāina but also community, and that community connection led us to be in conversation with Uncle Moki Labra, whose own genealogy comes here to this place, who's been really our anchor and our guide from that time up until now. We transitioned sites as archaeology field school from Kupopolo to Waialua, a Kauhale site there in 2015. We were here 2013, 14, 15, and then 2016 and 17 at Waialua as archaeology, and then 2018, 19, 20, and then this year have all been oral history, ethnographic, collecting the mo'olelo, the stories of the kūpuna. The chant we opened up with was from the words, part of them were from the words of a chant offered by the goddess Hi'iaka in her epic journey when she came into these lands, offered this chant that referred to Waialua Kaileo Nui, the resounding voice of the ocean. And that, along with other mana'o that those of us involved with the field school added to it, and inspiration from Uncle Moki to say that this voice we're coming and offering for permission to enter with is coming with aloha, was what we offered in our chant. And we found it really appropriate to offer it here, where it all started. So.
Yeah. Kukala denpa hole. But when we get to the top, the students, they cry, and they only this joyful cry, and yet I could sense where some had let go of some of their problems they were dealing with, and was so Maikai. And I tell them like this: as a kumua, I'm not teaching you nothing up here in the kuhivi. It is a kuhivi that going to teach you guys something. It is that space class. It is not my class. I come up here to gain knowledge myself, just by listening to the trees, the winds, feel the rain, and absorbing through the eye. Yeah, and I'm going to share this from what I've learned. I learned so much, because it is like a place that haven't been touched by a human. Although I do touch when I pick ferns and stuff, but I ask.
Sure. It was in those early days that Moki mentions the experience of the shell that Pulama and him, the shells that were being gathered, and the story of an old shell that Moki shared with Pulama on the beaches in Waialua. That was a message for us to treat things that others might discard as old and ugly or not of use, as something that are beautiful and important to be cherished. These wahi kūpuna, these ancestral places such as Kupapoloheau, and the Kauhale site at Uko'a, as well as, and this is the important part for us, the mo'olelo of the kupuna that carry on the stories of the land, their own voices, like the shell that are the kai, the onui. That mele that we offer in our entering the Waialua ʻāina, both the physical and the mo'olelo space, comes from that mo'olelo of hi'iaka that starts off with acknowledging the resounding voice of the ocean, but that it's also heard upland in Lihue. And today's Huakai, we went from Makai to Mauka, from the ocean to the uplands, to contemplate the resonance of the voice of the ocean. Not only the ʻāina, but those kūpuna who are the other ways of transmitting those voices. And I wanted to name all of our kūpuna that shared their mo'olelo with us between 2018 and 2020 was the last year we conducted new interviews. Kanani and Keith Owai, Leif Anderson, Francis Forsyth, Herbert and Mary Chun, Jock Sutherland, Emmeline Causey, Vanderlyn Anana, George A.E., Gay Timon, Frank and Leilani Pereira, Diane Cannon, Judy Miram, Kenneth Souza, Alfred Alameda, Kimo Lyman, Lois Pacoba, John Hirota, Kenneth Sagawa, and Moki Labra. A number of these kupuna have passed in this time, and so we honor them by carrying on their stories as the chants we also carry on become part of this kaileo nui that will resound in uplands far beyond our shores, is what we hope. I also want to mahalo and acknowledge other staff that made all of this possible. For our ethnographic field school, Malia Evans, Keola Silva, Ku'ule Freed, Skyu Lewis, as well as other kako'o we've had from Rachel Greiner and Kathy Ferreira, photographers Jesse Steffen and Makoa Freitas, and even prior to our ethnographic field school, when we were in archaeology, Dr. Jim Bayman, Wendy McElroy, Pulama Lima, Charmaine Ledesma. And throughout all of this time, again, the ongoing continued support of Kamehameha School's ʻāina Ulu program, and in the community, the Waialua Hawaiian Civic Club. Nui loa mahalo i nā ʻāina, nā kūpuna, nā kupa, nā kua, no ka holomua ana, me ka holopono ana o kēia papahana.
I want to mahalo Uncle Francis Forsyth for allowing us to listen and learn to his story and the connections that he had here in Waialua, growing up as a child, and then throughout his adult life as well. My ohana, we have strong connections to his ohana, his sisters. And so I always remembered going to his house, and they have a big mango tree. And so we would always, when it was the season, my grandma would bring us all down, and everybody would get on a ladder, or you grab the bucket or the rake to clean up everything, but nobody actually wanted that job. And we would sit and pick mangoes all day long with them. And I always loved just hearing, whatever he had going on. And he was such a talented musician. He could play the piano, play the organ, ukulele, all different types of things. And so when I saw him on that first Saturday in 2018, when we had our open house for our community members to come and learn more about the field school, it was just a sign for me. I was like, oh my goodness, Uncle Francis, he's here. And then being able to create a story map for him and to really take the time to listen to his stories and record it on video as well as audio is really special, especially since that he has passed and is no longer with us, but we are able to remember him and his music. And I'm so happy we were able to record him playing the piano at the church that day. I always remember wanting to play organ and piano like him. And though my skills aren't nearly as close to his, it's an inspiration for me to always go back and listen and watch and see. So mahalo, Uncle Francis, for all of the joy and the love and the music that you continue to fill my life and our lives with. Mahalo.
Mahalo and aloha nui to Auntie Judy Moram and Auntie Lois Pacoba. Even though there's a whole lot of lessons we can learn from the both of them, I would like to talk about how these two wahine kupuna exemplify service and turning outwards, always outwards. In today's world, the people who claim to be self-made, who claim to be, they did it, they accomplished things on their own, they're independent. That's a huge thing today, is being able to say, I am self-made, I don't rely on anyone or whatever. Everything is turned on oneself. What are you able to accomplish and achieve in your life with your personal life goals? That's huge today. These two women are from a different era, a different time, a different mindset, where everything was focused outwards. From Auntie Judy helping to cook and clean and watch keiki, and then using her sewing talents for free, helping at schools from May Day to learning how to throw paina and to sing in church. Everything focused outward. And then of course my personal experience being in the hui that worked with Auntie Lois Pacoba, she especially is an example of turning oneself outward in order to she not only bettered herself through this and her ohana, but she had bettered her community through her work, her volunteer work that she continues to do well into her 80s. And since she was a child, being the oldest, serving her grandparents or parents by watching kids, by being studious in school to in order to take her someplace that would allow her to continue to serve. And so I would challenge today's standards of being self-made and self this and that, and to look at what the kupuna had done and to be outward facing, to always be serving, to look at what can we do for each other, and to recognize, as both of these kupuna did, that yeah, it's okay, I guess, to be self-made, but you wouldn't be where you are without those who had come before you, without inspiration, encouragement, from other people as well in your lives. And they, throughout their stories, they've always recognized their parents, grandparents, cousins, church leaders, community leaders that helped to make them who they are. So mahalo to Auntie Judy Moran and Auntie Lois Pakoba. Aloha nui ya olua. Mahalo.
Each and every one of the kupuna that shared their mo'olelo it's hard to put into words the great honor and aloha that I feel. I guess the one that I will that I'll call up right now are Uncle Herbert and Auntie Mary Chun. And I really want to mahalo them because they were the very first set of narrators that I worked with when I was in Alaka'i the first year. They were also, in terms of those kupuna that we had the first year, at least that we were working with, the only ones who I didn't know before. And so I was very nervous about taking students to a new situation, a new home, a new hale, with kupuna who I was only now starting to create a relationship with. But they were just so warm, so generous, put us all at ease, and just so loving. And really that story about the love of family and their sons continue to resonate, and has given me something to think back on for years. They continue to be a presence in the community, standing up for the community against developments that would radically change the way of life for Waialua and Haleiwa. And they continue to just show aloha and just be there. And that's something that has really inspired me, and gave me a confidence that the work we're doing could be done in a good way with the right people who are the ones who are going to show up. And likewise, it's incumbent upon us to show up. The word for arriving is ho'ea in Hawaiian, which is also, if you think about it, to create ea, ho'ea. Ea is our term for sovereignty, for life, for breath, for breathing. And a big part of that is just showing up. So I mahalo them for their continued ho'ea in this community and for the life and energy that they breathed in to myself when I was just beginning this new phase of the field school. So mahalo.
Mahalo to Moki Labra, our Super Kūpa, from Mauka to Makai, or mountain to ocean. He's the Super Kūpa because he is of the place of the ʻāina of Kapailoa and the Waialua moku. He excels in fishing, and he's a master lei maker, hula dancer, kumu, or hula teacher. The stories of our kupuna, such as Auntie Judy Moran, who talks about the limu or seaweed at the shores of Ali'i Beach Park. Auntie Diane Cannon, who who used to live at Loko Ea Fish Pond and who used her hands as a little girl to catch this spiny fish called a hole hole. Auntie Emmeline Kazi, who lived at Waialua, who cared for the ʻāina that was owned by Kamehameha Schools. She walked us to her property and pointed out the pump house where the sugar company used hydroelectric to supply electricity to the plantation housing. And she explained how it worked, how the water and the windmill, or generated this electricity and sent it to the plantation housing up above her property. And also Uncle George A'i, who drove cattle throughout the Moko of Waialua and using a pin ox to woo the cattle so it could be herded. Uncle George was our first kūpuna to hala or pass away. His ohana requested that we speak at his funeral, and we also spoke at his funeral, and we did an oli or a chant. One of the olis that is O Waialua Kaileo Nui. One of his grandchildren who could not come to Hawaii was allowed to see his story map produced by the North Shore Field School, one of the many that was produced. She cried in happiness when she got to see and hear her papa's voice. Uncle George's family was so happy that we documented, and so grateful that we documented his story, his mo'olelo. These are the reasons why the North Shore Field School program is mea nui, is of very great importance, and why I enjoyed and am proud of what we have accomplished these past years. Mahalo nui.
So it's never just one. With that being said, I'd like to mahalo all the kūpuna who have opened their lives, their doors, their mo'olelo, their vai, their spirit to us. For that, I am forever grateful. With that being said, I'll mention a few of the kūpuna who I actually worked with. So first it was Uncle Herbert and Auntie Mary. Mahalo for them. You know, it's not taken for granted to have you folks open up your doors and have food on the table for us. That is no small thing. Next will be Uncle Jock for opening up his mother's house and his other house, and for the laughs, and for that thing that's tied to the nalu, is surfing as a platform. To see that plaque with Eddie Aikau, the great Duke, and for him to share his mo'olelo, which include all the people. He mentions all the people that helped him. Next would be Uncle Pocho. Mahalo, Uncle Pocho. Was good, just like he said. And for you to share the places where you, in Kanu, your kūpuna, places you malama, that is also no small thing, and it's not taken for granted. And those places will be protected. And Uncle Alfred. I love you, Uncle Alfred. I miss you. You're the one I spent the most time with. You know, I was looking forward to spend more time with you. But I am right now, you know, like you said. There's always gonna be a piece of you in me, and I will malama and cherish that. And I will pass that on too. So aloha to your ohana too, because they open the doors to their house. The meanest, fullest spirit you could ever see. Oh goodness, that was mean. You know why? Because them is some mean peoples. They don't come like that. That's rare, that's a treasure these days. But at least here I didn't talk about them, but mahalo Auntie Judy and Auntie Lois, them some cause. Talk about hard workers, it's like, to the bone commitment. So I respect them. Not just because they're hard workers, but they aloha too, you know, it's all of the kūpuna. Aloha is the backbone and also hard work, yeah. Kahusigawa. Mahalo for sharing your unique mana'o, and also to malamele kuliana of that olelo Hawaii, because you know a lot of things are formed through our thoughts, and the way the world is the way it is because of languages. Yeah, it's all trying to become just one. So to have the many languages to solve the many problems that we will face as a people, as the peoples, as the earth, that is no light work. Tumalama all the religions and tumalama all the languages. So mahalo for that. And of course, mahalo kamoki. Like I said, it's no small thing to open up your doors and have food on the table. And to have spent the night under your roof is no small thing. That is how I was raised. So mahalo for that. I can't even put into words. Yeah? All the kala in the world is less than that. So, mahalo for all of you, all of your kūpuna. Yeah, we wouldn't be here without them. Yeah, and to see all the wisdom, the joy, the kalohe, you know, and each and every one of us, yeah. So this is heavy work, but it's also fun work, like Uncle Moki says, yeah. To come from a place, from a good place, yeah. There's a lot of forces that try to, please, I guess you could call it like negative forces, yeah, for whatever reason, yeah. And it's not to be negligent to ignore those forces, but to focus on the maikai. And we can see that maikai through all of the kūpuna who have shared their stories and mo'olelo through over here. And I'm going to end with this, Auntie Kanani. We maikai because of you. So mahalo for that little olelo you told me.
Okay. So I have this saying, the way I started the layer with 3 in the front is the way I end them. But we get plenty more for go on this one. So this is the heel technique, and basically I put pulley into every laser pulley, and the energy I was sharing with my mo'olelo coming up with the stories of my halau or the halau and what I've learned. So the way you start the lay is the way you normally finish them, and just look at this pulse to see how much more you get. Yeah.
Is that all from your yard, Uncle?
Oh no, yeah, my yard up here.
Oh, his yard?
Well, because when I say e he kanaka e kumo maloko e he kanaka e kumo maloko e kauhaline o Waialua, this is my yard, this is my house. Yeah. This is our yard back then. Back then we never had doors to close. Back early Hawaii days, we never had door. You look at kane hale, the vime hale, no more door. It's just on puka. Yeah. No head door. So that's why welcome to my hale. I'm referring actually to the ʻāina, my hale, my house. It's not really, it's ours. Yeah. So,
now speaking about Kaileo Nui, let's start off with ancestral knowledge. Ancestral knowledge is passed through mo'olelo or stories, and it is considered mea nui or of great importance. Hawaiian poetry has what we call kauna or hidden meaning. My interpretation of Kaileo Nui, or the loud voice of the ocean, is parallel to the mea nui, or important voices of the people of Waialua. The leo nui, or voice, is a conduit, and to the mo'olelo, which carries ancestral knowledge. The mo'olelo carries this ancestral knowledge, or the stories carry the knowledge. Through the mo'olelo, or stories told by the kūpuna, we learn ways to improve our food system, appreciate our ʻāina, or land and people, find ha'aha'a, or humility, and aloha, love, generosity, kindness, and compassion. We can be empowered by our traditions, and there are many other reasons that I may have not covered why ancestral knowledge is very important, and this is why mo'olelo, stories that are saved for future generations, is very mea nui, or important.
Going back to the kaileo nui, so over the course of this past almost a year that I've been with the field school, I never really, I was introduced to the oli that we use for our protocol while we were socially distancing, but it didn't really hit me until we came out here for the first time last November. And it was my, I'll say, reintroduction to Waialua, my first real introduction to Waialua, because I don't have that many memories of this area of the island from growing up. But understanding, hearing everyone with this oli, and being so close to the kai, like I can hear the kaileo nui, especially here in Waialua, but it sort of grounded me, because the kaileo nui, every place has their own kind of kaileo nui, and it's so much more powerful here in Hawaii, and I found that I was missing that when I wasn't living in the islands, when I was out and gone. Chanting to the kaileo nui, hearing the kaileo nui, it had me traveling across the island. It brought me home, it grounded me, and that's the sound that I look for when I go places. But the kai is the first, that's the first thing I look for, the kai breaking on the shorelines when I'm flying.
Mahalo nui, mahalo nui yaoi kumu, mahalo yaoi Uncle Moki for allowing us to use your space, your home, probably the most intimate space we could think of here in Waialua. Although we've been at the courthouse, we've been on different wahipana, wahikupuna sacred areas and ancestral places around this area, I would say this is probably one of the most intimate and important places, because this is where Uncle Moki calls home. And mahalo nui again to you, Kumu, for preparing our awa for us and gathering us here together. I think this is an appropriate way to do our NAISA presentation. And aloha and mahalo to all of those tuning in to our presentation today. And I don't mean to be too long and too wordy, but in regards to our work here in Waialua, the moko of Waialua, Waialua Kaileo Nui, we just finished a little huaka'i, or journey, a little field trip, you could say, up into the Kuahivi, into the mountains, and had a chance to overlook all of Waialua, all the way down to Waimea and Waimea Valley, and it was really, I know it's corny, but breathtaking. But for me, the biggest thing that I got from it, that I think has been connecting in my mind in regards to the field school, in regards to the mountain, being up to the mountain, is that as we're up there, Uncle Moki is explaining this story, this mo'olelo, this connection to this stone, this connection to this tree, the story and history of this plant, the usages of this plant. And he used to do that down here, next to the ocean, next to the old Waialua courthouse, or around the old heiau. And that's what I feel I've learned today, and what we've received and understood through the field school, is that all of this is about honoring and loving not just a cherished place, but place in general, a home. This home of Waialua is a home for thousands of generations of people that have lived here and have utilized every plant, every nook and cranny, every stone, from mountain to the sea, from Mauka to Makai. There is a story. There is something to be told. There is something to learn. I forgot which presentation I was watching, but somebody had talked about. Actually, I think it was from our field school, that the plants, the environment is the first teacher, right? And although we've gone through the field school recording, writing down, videotaping explanations, history, stories from the elders, the kūpuna, today was a good day to learn from the, as my brother Kavika said, the kūpuna law, the first, the original, the old kūpuna elder, the ocean and the land. And that was, I think, is what is in my mind, in my heart today to share with you folks, is that the work that we do here is not just focused on just getting some old people's story onto a video. That's not what it is. It's about recording and understanding, but most of all, listening and cherishing the stories of all our kupuna, both the human kind and the environment kind, to learn from it, from the top of the mountain all the way to the water's edge and into the ocean. There's something to learn. There's something to know. There's something to do. The last thing I'd like to say is that Uncle Moki had, expressed to us, and Kumukavika, that there is a kuleana, there is a responsibility, that although we learn from these places, we often take from these places, there is an obligation to give back to these places, because as so much as what we've learned, we must also contribute, so that others may also learn and partake as well. So mahalo nui au ko pakahi a pau no keia po mai kai e hui pū e a koko mai I ka malu o keia hale. Mahalo I ka umeke awa me nā kupuna a pau I mai no keia hui ana. Aloha.
Aloha everyone. My style is just a more laid back talk story style, so ikalama if I seem unprofessional, I mean no offense to anybody. With that being said, first thing I'd like to give a mahalo and a ke aloha nui to everyone who's made this possible, everyone in here, everyone out this place from before us, Okomoki, the people and community of Waialua, land and place and people, Kumukavika, all of his family, all of Shelby's family, all of Kanai's family, all of Elise's family, Kako'opa, all of the ohana. With that being said, kai leo nui, for me, it's a great acknowledgement of Kanaloa. It's the ocean, and of all the akua, that is, which is greater than humans, which allow us Kanaka to enjoy this beauty of this place that is Waialua. This work, really can't put it into words, it's a privilege, it's an honor, it's a kuleana, it's a great love, great love, yeah. It's what resonates with me. This started from before all of our time, even when we got over here. Many people who have done that pule, the la'inohona, from long ago, from the hills that resonate all the way to now. And to be able to hear that and see it through the land and the people of this place that is Waialua, it's an honor, privilege, and a blessing. And I'm constantly learning, and I'm also grateful. Kanaloa is something that heals me. It's not something to be feared, something to always be respected, just like the ʻāina. It's never to fear, because there's a big difference coming from a place of fear and coming from a place of aloha. And that's one of the great lessons that nobody just told me over here, but it's what I've interpreted through my time. Through all the mo'olelo research, through all the kūpuna that have shared their life stories, that vai of their lives, dealing with all these, I won't say problems, but these issues of development and new things that aren't so good for the health of the people and the land. And yet, the most important thing, that vai, it hasn't changed. And we hear a lot of things like from Pilahi Paki's explanation of what aloha is. And to see it actually not being said, right? Not being preached, but actually being lived here. So this is kind of like, even Hawaii, the term gets thrown around kipuka, right? And that's something that the kua creates. Yeah. But when I see this over here, this is a pu'uhonua. And most definitely not kua creates this, but it's because of the people here that it's la'inohona. And for that, I'm so grateful for this lesson, and I'm still trying to understand. Kind of like I'm talking out loud right now, yeah. So, yeah. So at a loss for words, I just want to cry. And you know what? Crying, that's takanaloa, yeah. Those salty tears, yeah. And from that way comes life, yeah. Tears of joy, tears of happiness. To go through these tough times with the sadness, with the happiness, this great experience of life in this time of COVID, to be able to sit here with this technology to not tell you, but to share the experience that I've had, that we've had, and likewise to also to hear what you have to share. It's a great gift, and that's what being here has opened up. So always up on the kuahiwi, Uncle Moki was telling us about the yakela pavehe. Aye. So I see that looking out here, but then in the mind's eye, it's just like another great person of Kanaloa, that he gave his life. Vai, so eri aikau. So we're talking about Nalu. So when I think about Nalu, hitting Nalu, that's the number one surfer I know. Not no personally ikimauka, but no through the mo'olelo. And it's that mo'olelo that I am so grateful for, to be able to work with, to be able to do what needs to be done with the kūpuna, tell me what I need to do with it, yeah. So I'm still learning, but to have that mo'olelo live, change, and shape my life, learning about the mo'olelo of this land, the people here. You see the past, you see it now, and you see it into the future. So I had a dream. I opened this door for this kūpuna. I was over here, was on store on Haleku'ai. I never know, but I opened the door for him. He told me ala. And it just came to my mind this morning, actually. I was opening the door for the kūpuna, but what he actually was telling me to do was also open the door for the future generations, right? It's kind of like one of the things I learned from a little kid time growing up on Kauai. Open heart comes from open mind. So you open all the doors so that there may be life. And that ties into here, because this is what I've learned over here also. This is what has strengthened me. This is what is pa'a inside my na'au from my time over here, yeah. So, yeah, just mahalo to all of you. And
Mahalo ke akua, no makua, a me nā kūpuna. Mahalo e nā kumu, a me nā hamana I ke ia papa. Waialua, what a special place for so many reasons. There's an Indigenous scholar, Native American professor named Thomas King, who once said, "The truth about stories is that is all we are." And through my own interactions and my relationships here in Waialua, I've realized, that this is what Waialua is. It's a place that's filled with stories and with memories and experiences for each of us, and that through those special moments that we have, we find meaning and life, and we also bring Waialua to life, and that is our place here and now. My own ohana has connections to Waialua. Both of my great-grandparents on my paternal side were cooks in the chef, or like chefs, cooks, one for the Dillingham family and one for the Dole family. And then I have other ohana who are out here in the community still. And growing up, I've always come down to Waialua and created my own stories and memories, paddling with Manua Kekai Canoe Club, or visiting my cousins and my friends. And now with the field school, it's been a true blessing in so many ways to give back to the community and to listen and learn to the stories of the people who make this a special place. Moving, forward and growing up and just seeing the changes now in the community and seeing the impact that I can have as a kumu and as a hamana has been so eye-opening and gratifying and humbling in many different ways. I'm so honored to have such an amazing Alaka'i team and our students and our kūpuna who are all here and willing to support and remember the stories of Waialua. And I hope that at the end of each semester that we not only take the stories with us, but that we find ways to write our own stories and to build our own connections to this community, and that we can help to tell the story of Waialua and create the new story of what it will be, and what we want our keiki, the next generation, to remember about this place, and that they will have their own stories and that it'll continue on, because like King said, the truth about stories is that is all we are. We are the stories that have been told from our kūpuna, the stories that we carry, and the stories that we continue to write and will tell to the next generation. So mahalo nui for listening to my stories and for the stories of all our alaka'i and everyone who's been a part of us and a part of the community. May we remember and continue to tell and share and just malama this place. Aloha.
Many words I can share. Many words. Mahalo, first of all. Ke akua, na kūpuna na amakua. No lamakai no keia for this great day. Mahalo nui no kula nui o UH Manoa, Kamehameha Schools, for allowing this to puka, to push forth. For me, as a resident of Waialua and a given name Supa Kupa, was very, very, it let me to the ears. However, the story's not about me. It's about Leo Waialua. And a lot of time one can find the proper words to share through Pule. And as I said here, really, what would I share? Listening to the Hamana, the Alakai, the Kumu. I'm grateful that to be a vessel for others, as an instrument to share, to help share the stories of Waialua. I thank our kūpuna, like I said, for sharing me knowledge to pass on to others, sharing with me aloha to pass on to others, sharing me the kai to share with others, sharing with me the kuhiwi to share with others. How we said in the kai leo nui, yeah, and how we spoke of kanaloa. And yes, for me there was a mele been said, and so not much talk, but basically what I want to share is this, is that only the mele that came from the kakai, and it's also a way how we got permission to start this field school was through an old shell that came from the ocean. Yeah. But in this mele it speaks of the beauty of Waialua and the voice of Kanaloa. It speaks of the rainbow that appears, that hovers over Waialua. It speaks of the kilihune, the rain that gave life to the land, this beautiful place of Waialua. So I was going to say a little bit of this mele, and it goes like this. E nanika ina o Waialua me ka leo I ke kai Kai leo nui nui ka aloha no kanaloa. My great love for kanaloa. Ho'olono I ka mele ka manu o kai ahulu. I ka makani ili ke kino aloha I ke kahi. We listen to this bird of kai ahulu as the wind brushes up on her skin. It assures us to give love and love will come back. Ike kapi o ke anue maluna o Waialua. I te tiri une I ta ho'ola I ta ʻāina. As we see this rainbow appear above us of Waialua, this gentle rain comes and helps to give life to the land. He ʻāina na tua hiwi lihue a me ka ala. He ala. Mai le lau I moki hana I ta ulu vehi I ta lani. So we see the mountains of Lihue and Ka'ala and the fragrant mai le lau I moki hana that grows lustfully up on these hills that reaches to the heavens. Puana mai a ke aloha he nani o Waialua a me ka leo I ke kai ka leo o na kūpuna. So, it's told the love and the beauty of Waialua and the voice of the kūpuna. So basically, to me, the voice, Kaileo Nui, is the number one kūpuna because it shares the pakai and it reaches from corner to corner of the earth. It doesn't separate us, but it connects us with around the islands, around the earth. So this school really had taught me so much. As an individual that never went to Kulanui, it came to me. And I've learned so much through that. Not knowing I had a lot of knowledge with me, just by sitting on the seashore and going to the mountains and talking to the plants, giving them water, and it would feed me the knowledge that I needed. Like going to the shore and ho'oleo pena or throwing net and sitting by the seashore, it fed me what I needed to learn also. And that is, I can say, is what I basically would share with the students, the community, through a lei also. Yeah. A lei also connects individual to the next individual. Because a lei in our culture also represents a child. To create this lei, string, rope, and cord is the most important thing created through Keakua. The string is what we sew the flowers together to make the adornment. The cord, the umbilical cord, is the one for the child before birth. We've learned, a lot of us were given names before we were born and noted to understand what would be and what our kuleana would be as we carry the name. So with that in mind, I just mahalo Keakua, mahalo kumukavika. I still have to bring up this one individual's name. Her name is Pulamalima. And, it is through her and through Keakua and our kūpuna that brought our hui together. So I just want to share that, and hopefully it ties into this project that we're sharing our ike or mana'o. And basically just mahalo Keakua la makai no keia.
Uhola ia ka makaloala, ua ike alohala, kukai ia ka haloala, pawehi mai na lehua, mai ko oku ia ka halawaila, mahalo e na kua. Mahalo e na kūpuna la ea, mahalo me ke alohala.